Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Blount County Legislative Body is now in session. The Honorable Jerome Moon, Chairman, presiding. All persons having business with this Honorable Commission, draw near, give attention, and you shall be heard. God save the United States of America, the great state of Tennessee, and this Honorable Commission. Thank you very much. You may be seated, please. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 20th Blount County 2013 Board of Commissioners meeting. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Colonel Clausen for the presentation, his adjutant, Major Wade, as well as the color guard. All those gentlemen are all combat veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. If you'd please give your attention to the evacuation procedures.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
Mr. Clerk.
You have 20 present, 1 absent. You have a quorum.
20 present, 1 absent. Chair will now stand for motion to set the agenda. Commissioner. Moved by Mr. Lael and Burkhalter. Mr. Lael, just a moment. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. One alteration to the agenda for tonight. Let me find it on the number here. Number 2 on F2, new business, resolution amending resolution 0202004. Would like to withdraw that from this meeting after conversation with the county attorney.
I have request to withdraw item F2 from the agenda without objection. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Go ahead.
And if permissible, since once the language is cleaned up a little bit through the attorney's office, we would like to bring it back, or I would like to bring it back for the agenda meeting in July. Since the resolution will be somewhat altered, I anticipate it probably should come back through the agenda meeting.
That's correct. File with the clerk.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kaler, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respectfully request that if you look on your agenda, the item F9 appropriation, below F9, added victims assistance assessment fees. Back in July of 2012, this body allowed the county clerk's office to begin receiving fees in regard to domestic violence. Evidently, those collections have not been dispersed. They are in excess of $37,000, not tax dollars, generated money through the court system. I ask that it be allowed to be entered into the agenda, please.
Have a request to add Resolution 1206-012 to tonight's agenda without objection. Hearing no objection, that item will be F10 on tonight's agenda. We have a motion on the floor to set tonight's agenda, striking item F2 and adding F10. Discussion. Are the members ready for the, whoops, Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to request that item 1A be removed from the consent calendar to the regular order of business.
Okay, item 1A, the minutes of the May 16 meeting will be moved to item F11. Are the members ready for the question? The pending motion is to set tonight's agenda. Vote yes to set, vote no not to set.
You have 20 yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. The agenda is set for this evening. Moving to item B, the consent calendar. Chair will stand for a motion to approve the consent calendar. Ms. Lambert moves. Mr. Carver seconds. Item 1A has been moved to item F11. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to approve the consent calendar. Vote no not to approve. Commissioner Folks.
You have 20 yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. The consent calendar is approved. Item C, input on items on tonight's agenda. If you'll come forward, please.
I'm Linda King with Citizens for Blount County's Future. I live in District 4. I'll be speaking on F9 as well as the budget. Even after we assured you that the wheel tax would fail, you went ahead and wasted over $80,000 in taxpayer money. Do you not understand the mood of the community? People are fed up with overspending and increasing the size of local government. They don't want more taxes, they want drastic cuts. Section 18 of your appropriation resolution states that our county officials are being paid above the minimum required by the state. So let's look at those salaries. Several departments have been pointed out that need reductions. The sheriff, the circuit court clerk, Parks and Recs, the Heritage Center, as well as our schools. Instead, they ask for more. The Sheriff's Department now wants the Commission to spend well over $600,000 of our rainy day fund to buy vehicles or whatever. He has an excessive number of cars already, but has the full Commission even questioned this purchase? If it is such a necessity and the Sheriff can't do without, have him use drug fund money. According to state regulations, it's quite acceptable to use drug fund to buy cars. However, it should be totally unacceptable to use rainy day money for this reason. Why should the taxpayers have to cover this expense when it can be done through another option? The rainy day fund should be used only in emergency situations. The maintenance of effort for schools is apparently a necessity at this point, but sheriff vehicles are definitely not. Another request by the Sheriff's Department that should be denied is the application for a $1.3 million grant for the COPS program. The taxpayers would be required to match 25% of the grant for 3 years and then accept full responsibility for picking up the continuing expense in the 4th year. Our budget already requires rainy day fund to make it balance. Where would the $100,000 next year come from? Is the sheriff willing to cover it with his regular budget, or would it call for a property tax increase due to increased spending? Grants come with strings. Grants call for matching money. This grant does both. The COPS grant would cover the hire of 8 new deputies. The Sheriff's Department has a requirement that makes it impossible for the Commission to reduce the number of his employees. Therefore, the 8 new hires would be ours forever, including health benefits, retirements, equipment, and vehicles. Why are we increasing government and our budget when we're already so far in debt? Please start doing the right thing. Listen to the majority, who we represent, who vote against higher taxes and more spending. Thank you.
Anyone else? Come forward, sir. Introduce yourself and the district in which you reside.
My name is Douglas Benton. We're talking about 7C. I live in Alcoa, and yes, I'm still angry. I'm sick and tired of the bobbing heads of Blount County Commission spending our money, and it's money we don't have. Aren't we around $600 million in debt? Why don't we don't have any more money? How many ways do we have to say this before you start believing it? What does the sheriff have on you people? Does he know something about you that you don't want him to reveal? Are you being held hostage? This is like the mafia. From what I understand about the 8 sheriff's grant is that we pay 25% of their pay for 3 years. Then we pay the full amount forever. We won't fire them after 3 years. Then they will be permanent employees. I don't care if they're free. We still have to give them a car and everything that goes with the job, and that costs us money. We don't have any money. I hope some of you grow a backbone or some other body part and say no to the sheriff. I have an idea. Why don't we put this 8 sheriff's hire out to a public vote? If the wheel tax, which was for the schools, didn't pass, do you think for the sheriff will pass? Ha! By the way, the U.S. is almost $17 billion in debt. This is a grant from the U.S. federal government. We're borrowing from China to do this. How stupid are we? Why can't we say no? Why can't they say no? We did. If you dared go out and ask your citizens what they think, they would probably say they don't want to spend one more freaking dime on the sheriff's budget. Thank you.
Mr. Lowe.
My name is Barney Lowe. I live at 408 Lowe Lane, Maryville, Tennessee, and I'm a member of Citizens for Blount County's Future, and very proud to say so. This has been covered before, and you've probably heard a lot tonight. Just a couple of my own opinions, and I'll be out of the way. I know you all frown on what little time a citizen gets to speak before the entire Blount County Commission. First, why do we have to pay for sheriff's cars from the rainy day fund? We need to use that money to buy books for our schools, since it's been years since they have been able to buy new up-to-date ones. Make good sense to me, but they aren't high enough on the totem pole. After all, they are only our future. Do the right thing. See if the cars can't wait for a little while. Second opinion I have, we can't afford to apply for that COPS grant at this time because of the 25% match and the fact that we would have to take over the entire cost the 4th year at a cost of something like $600,000, and that's forever. But that does not, but what does a citizen know? Another done thing, I guess. By the way, the vote on this wheel tax was 13, this is a commission, there's 13 yes, 2 absent, and the rest of them were no's. I think there's about 6 of them. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Gann. I live in District 8, and I am a teacher. I am here this evening to ask you to find some way to give the school system the funding they need. To be honest, the students of this system and this county are being cheated. They are being cheated out of the education they deserve, and it is time to put a stop to it. When I speak of these children, I'm not talking about faceless subjects who have no feeling and no connections to you. These are your children and grandchildren. They have formed trusting relationships with their teachers, and I am one of those teachers. I am dedicated to giving these children the best education they can possibly get, and I am not alone in this endeavor. I am joined by a dedicated team of highly qualified teachers whose sole purpose is to empower these students with the knowledge and skills that will prepare them for college and the workplace. I know that I echo the sentiments of my colleagues when I say this. I am dedicated to the mission of educating my students to the best of my ability, whatever it takes, in a safe and caring environment. I do more than educate my students. I care about them, and they know this. Everyone wants to know that someone cares about them, especially children. I am dedicated to showing these children that I care about them. However, this is being disregarded. If funding is not given to the school system, I will no longer be able to walk into the classroom and empower my students with the care and knowledge that they are entitled to. I am shocked and appalled that our county would be willing to engage in what President George W. Bush so accurately described as, quote, the soft bigotry of low expectations. Each and every one of you obviously received an education, and you've become successful members of society. However, if you refuse to fund the schools, you are willfully denying the children of this county their God-given right to do the same. There are those who would say that we have too many people educating our children. I would invite those people to walk into the classroom and try doing what we do every day while being given the state evaluation, but in all actuality, it's not about what the teachers have to do. It's about the students. It's about the kids. To put it quite plainly, there's a choice before you. To either fund the schools and do good for the county for many years to come, or refuse to fund the schools and condemn the living future of this county to poverty and a severely decreased standard of living. The choice is yours. Will you choose education? I certainly hope so. Thank you.
Good evening. Rosalind Lyons, 4th District. I spoke to you the other night and asked if you would put on your agenda about rental properties and the problems that we're having and the lack of laws
Ma'am,
governing
excuse me. There's no item on the agenda. You'll have to speak at the end of the meeting. There is
Yes,
no
sir.
agenda item. So if you'll come back up to on items not on the agenda, we'll be glad to listen. Thank you
Okay.
so much. Appreciate it.
May I speak on making appropriations for variation funds, departments, and institutions?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a request that this council make appropriations to make a county health code officer to govern over rental properties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Come forward, miss.
Good evening. I'm Karen Miller, and I reside in District 4. I'd like to adjust the budget in F9, taking $3.5 million from the county's rainy day fund is not the answer to correct the county's budget woes. Overspending in the county's general fund is a serious issue that needs to be dealt with. Where is the accountability when an elected official is allowed to spend $400,000 to get $100,000? and to spend $483,000 to get $93,000. The wasteful spending needs to stop now. The general government fund is up 70%, $3 million since 2008. Tonight, the COPS grant needs to be voted down because we, the people, cannot afford to pay for 8 new employees. I understand that after 3 years, this would cost the taxpayers $600,000 yearly, which we cannot afford. When drugs arrests in Blount County have gone from 169 in 2009 to 113 in 2012, there's no need for this grant. Our county does not need to be in the federal inmate business. $690,000 for new cars is a waste when drug money is there for that purchase. I urge this body to do the honorable action of putting an end to the wasting the Blount County citizens' monies. I would also like to see this body to look into collecting the $3.6 million in unpaid taxes in this county. And this money could be applied to education and it could be used wisely to address our terrible indebtedness. We do not need the federal government's grants. Thank you.
Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Samuel Duck, District 3. I'm going to be speaking on F9. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. This is actually my second meeting tonight. I went to Maryville City Council, and I thanked them for not raising our taxes for 5 years, thanked them for actually reducing employment, thanked them for paying off a bond early, and thanked them for actually managing their money such that the credit rating was increased. And I want to go ahead and say, looking at your calendar tonight, I'm happy that our budget at least did not go up. That's a good thing. I'm also happy that there's no property tax in it. However, it's still a deficit budget, which means more borrowing, and that's going to mean a future tax. And I also believe that our finance directors have been very clever at finding ways to find cookie jars with which to obtain funds. I'm fairly impressed with their ability to do that, but I'm afraid that this is getting a little bit dangerous. I just want to make sure that you know that. Now, I brought with me 2,474 signatures that we have accumulated over time. I wanted you to see them. These are people that don't want any more property tax and don't want any more borrowing. These are our number 2 and 3 items that's on our agenda that we're trying to accomplish in this county. This is a lot of signatures here. I want y'all to see this. I also want to bring something to your attention regarding the law of unintended consequences regarding this wheel tax. Now, a voter brought this to my attention, but I couldn't put 2 and 2 together until the Knoxville News-Sentinel ran an article on this subject. Did you know that we have 20,000 rental cars in Blount County? Do you know why this is? This is source is the News-Sentinel. Supposedly, it's because we don't have a wheel tax. And that's $480,000 of license plate registrations that are in Blount County because we have low wheel taxes. Now, these are people that own property in other counties and other states that, as far as I know, can go elsewhere. That could be, if you add in $35, $1.1 million worth of license plate registrations that would have left our county if the wheel tax had passed. Also, too, I was at Fairview Church the other day, and they were taking up donations for the library books. I actually gave, in a symbolic, probably for the wrong reason, measure, $35. And this might mean the difference between a child reading a book entitled The Blind Side versus reading a book called The Hunger Games, which depicts children killing children. Maybe church donations are the way to go. Now, I went back and called our trustee's office, and you know, out of these 4,000 folks that voted for this wheel tax, how many people decided to write a check to the county for $35? 0. Y'all have a good day.
See, I saw another hand in the middle. Come forward, please. Introduce yourself, the item to which you speak.
Good evening. My name is Deanne Martini. I'm a resident of Blount County in District 4. I would like to address item 7C regarding the Blount County Sheriff 2013 COPS grant and the unbalanced budget issues in Blount County. I honestly can't see how you can justify obtaining a $1.3 million grant with $600,000 worth of annual expenses to be paid back forever to obtain 8 more drug enforcement employees. I don't just see how you can justify this according to statistics that show in 2009 there were 169 arrests for drug violations, and in 2012 there were 113 arrests for drug violations. Please do the math. The number of arrests decreased. Can Blount County continue to spend $3 million more on our Sheriff's Department in comparison to the 2 other counties closest to us in size? Can we afford to do this considering that this money is failing to produce any visible difference in our crime rate? Should the county really be spending $2 million a year on our jail in comparison to similar Tennessee counties? Can we afford to spend more than twice as much on sheriff's vehicles as other 2 counties closest to us in our size? The average annual dollars over the last 6 years spent on vehicles for the Sheriff's Department is $724,000. They have over $1 million surplus in their drug money account and could use these funds to purchase vehicles and other equipment. So why should the taxpayers be spending this on these items? What I see happening by the overwhelming majority of this elected Board of Commissioners, including the mayor, is the use of distorted political rhetoric and irresponsible actions to continually justify tax and spend tactics rather than putting in the necessary work to have a balanced budget. There is plenty of areas to cut government waste if you really wanted to. If I can find these areas of waste, why can't you? I'm asking you to please do your job to cut wasteful spending and balance the budget without raising taxes. 2 referendums have been voted down in the last year. That's what the citizens of Blount County elected you to do. I salute you, Mr. Foltz, for continually standing up against irresponsible spending of taxpayer dollars, and in doing so, suffer the disrespectful actions and insults of other county commissioners on this board. I say God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Harry Grothjohn, 9th District. And I think it's 4, 7, F7, B, and C, as well as 9. I really appreciate the other taxpayers' comments this evening, Mr. Chairman. Let me try and reach out to you in a manner of educating us. We have for a long time had the misconception that grant money, federal grant money in particular, would be taken by someone else if we didn't. However, after a conversation with one of your commission members, she pointed out to me very clearly that the National Republican Party has on its website a tally that's continually showing that 40+% of the federal government spending is created through borrowing. Now, why is that important? Well, because what you're considering doing tonight is taking federal grant money, actually $1.3 million, of which almost $500,000 is going to come from borrowing. And who are we borrowing from, Mr. Chairman? We're borrowing from the Chinese. And what are the Chinese doing with that money, sir? They're buying American companies like Smithfield. And why are they doing that, Mr. Chairman? Because our money's not backed by anything except the empty promise of the Federal Reserve. Could the Chinese take that money and come and buy Vulcan materials in Blount County? Why, they certainly could, sir. Should we be contributing to the debt service of our children and grandchildren, Mr. Chairman? Or should we be hiring more teachers with our money? Why are we taking money out of our savings account, $3.5 million, to fund buying sheriff's deputies' cars that could be purchased with a fund balance of drug money. When are we going to quit taking our credit card to the bank to pay our mortgage and fully fund our debt service fund? Mr. Chairman, please act responsible for a change, lead by example, take the high road, and quit penalizing our children with your ineptitude to manage our resources. Again, I ask you, what do our children need? More debt service to the Chinese or more teachers? Show us you know the difference. Thank you.
Next item of business is F1. The chair will stand for a motion on item F1, Resolution 1306-005, to amend the zoning map of Blount County, Tennessee from R1 Rural District 1 to RAC Rural Arterial Commercial for the property located at 4907 and 4911 U.S. Highway 411 South, Tax Map 100, Parcel 027.00 and 028.00. Mr. Burkhalter moves. Mr. Lael seconds. The motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-005. Seeing no lights, are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt the resolution. Vote no not to adopt.
19 yeses, 1 abstain.
19 yes, 1 abstain. The resolution is adopted. F2 has been struck. The chair will stand. Commissioner Birchfield would like to change her vote. How you'd vote? Yes. Vote yes. Correct the record on item F1. 20 yes. 0 no. The resolution is still adopted. Next item of business is F3A. Chair will stand for a motion on a budget transfer in the amount of $195,671. Commissioner Burkhalter, you recognize.
I move to approve item F3A and F3B since they're all general nature as corrections for the budget.
So you're moving to approve the budget transfers on the agenda, item F3A, B, C, and D and E, correct? Yes. Is there a second? Mr. Farmer, second. Mr. Melton, second, excuse me. The motion is to approve the budget transfers. Discussion. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to approve the budget transfers. Vote no not to approve.
Yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. All the budget transfers are approved. The next item of business is F4A. The chair will stand for a motion on item F4A, Resolution 1306-002, to amend the general county fund budget by $1,500. Mr. Melton moves. Is there a second? Mr. Burkhalter seconds. The motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-002. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt the resolution. Vote no not to adopt.
Yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. The resolution is adopted. Next item of business is 4B. Chair will stand for a motion on item F4B, Resolution 1306-007, to amend the general county fund budget by $5,175. Mr. Burkhalter moves. Mr. Lewis seconds. The motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-007. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt the resolution. Vote no not to adopt.
Yes.
20 yes, 0 no. Resolution's adopted. Next item is F4C. Chair will stand for motion on F4C, Resolution 1306-008, to amend the general county budget by $130,000. One resolution deals with the general county fund budget, the other the debt service fund budget. I will let that motion stand. Is there a second? Mr. Burkhalter seconds. Are the members ready for the question? The motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-008 and Resolution 1306-009. Vote yes to adopt the resolutions. Vote no not to adopt. Commissioner Lael.
20 yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. The resolutions are adopted. Next item of business is F5, Resolution 1306-010, declaring the list of personal property surplus and available for sale on internet auction. Mr. Lewis moves. Mr. Carver seconds. Mr. Farmer, you are recognized, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Request to amend, need to remove the item showing as Blount County Sheriff's Office 2003 Ford Explorer, bad transmission, 108,000 miles. Need to request amend to remove that as it will be transferred to another department.
Have a motion to amend. Is there a second? Mr. Burkhalter seconds. The pending motion is to amend the resolution by deleting the 2003 Explorer from Blount County Sheriff's Office. Members ready for the question? Vote yes to amend. Vote no not to amend. Motion to amend is by Farmer. Burkhalter. Vote yes to amend. Vote no not to amend.
You have 20 yeses.
The resolution is amended. The pending motion now is to adopt Resolution 1306-010 as amended. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt Resolution 1306-010 as amended. Vote no not to amend, not to adopt.
20 yeses.
The resolution's adopted. Moving on to item F6, the chair will stand for motion on F6, Resolution 1306-011, declaring the property located at 1718, 1720, 1722 King Circle, Maryville, Tennessee, surplus and available for sale. Mr. Melton moves. I heard Mr. Carver second. The motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-011. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Declaring the Drug Task Force property surplus would seem to violate all the space allocation procedures put in place by this commission. Requests for additional space are supposed to go to the Space Allocation Committee. The Drug Task Force should have made a case for why they needed the additional space. If a convincing case for more space existed, the Space Committee...
Mr. Folks, the pending motion is to declare it surplus, not request new space. Pending motion before the body is declare.
I'm trying to make
surplus.
clear, Mr. Chairman, with respect, that the procedures that this commission set in place have not been followed here. If a convincing case existed for more space existed, the Space Committee should have looked across all of the county's available space to suggest possible solutions. None of this happened. Ron Talbot, the head of the Drug Task Force, simply wrote a letter to the mayor saying he wanted a bigger space and that his existing space should be declared surplus. We still don't have any idea whether he has a genuine need for space or what his new space is going to cost the taxpayers. This sets a terrible precedent. Now all the department head who wants some fancy new space has to do is write a letter to the mayor telling him to declare his space or his building as surplus. This doesn't make any sense, doesn't pass the common sense test. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt the resolution. Vote no not to adopt.
If 17 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstain.
17 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain. The resolution's adopted. Moving to item F7A. Please announce your vote. You're voting no. The vote is 17 yes, 3 noes. The resolution's adopted. Next item of business is F7A. The chair will stand for motion on F7A, grant application for the elections state computer grant.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Burkhalter moves. And Mr. Sample seconds. The motion is to approve the application. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to approve the grant application. Vote no not to approve.
You have 18 yeses and 2 noes.
18 yes and 2 no. The application is approved. The next item of business is F7B. The chair will stand for a motion on F7B, grant application for the 5th Judicial District Drug Task Force 2013-14 JAG grant. Mr. Lambert moves. The second was Mr. Kaler. The motion is to approve the grant application. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to approve the application. Vote no not to approve.
You have 20 yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. The grant application is approved. Moving to item F7C. The chair will stand for a motion on F7C, grant application to Blount County Sheriff's 2013 COPS grant. Mr. Kaler moves. Mr. Carver seconds. Mr. Folks, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we receive this grant, we will be forced to hire 8 additional deputies. With overhead and benefits over the next 3 years, that'll add approximately $400,000 to the sheriff's budget over the first 3 years. And then, with overheads, it'll add at least $600,000 a year to his budget. These people will be added to the county payroll forever because maintenance of effort requirements of the state do not permit the commission to reduce the positions in the sheriff's department. Even worse, no one has made a case why we might need 8 more deputies. At the Agenda Committee, we were told these deputies were needed because of additional drug crime in the county. Unfortunately, this is not supported by the facts. According to the Crime in Tennessee reports produced by the state, the number of arrests for drug offenses in Blount County has actually dropped 40% from 2009 to 2012, the last year for which data is available. This $600,000 a year that we're going to be committed to forever might be needed far more in other places, like the schools, rather than in the sheriff's department. In effect, by pursuing this grant, we are letting the feds tell us that sheriff spending is more important than school spending. We should make the decision where to spend our money, not have the feds making that decision for us. This is a bad deal. Thank you.
Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Chief French.
Ask the question, you want to bring him up?
A couple of questions that I have, Mr. Chairman. First of all is, are these officers only to be used for fighting drugs in our county, or will they have other uses? The second question is where is the $600,000 figure keep coming from? Because if I do $1.3 million divided by 3, that's getting me about $450,000, not at $600,000. So I'm just kind of trying to get some information out here, Mr. French.
Mr. French, you're recognized.
As far as the deputies go, they will be assigned, there will be some assigned to the drug needs in the county. As you've seen, the meth arrests have gone up. The incidences that we've been dealing with in the last several months, and the drug problem, and the rest of them will be assigned to patrol the streets of neighborhoods and to make the community a safer place. I mean, as far as the people's numbers that they're getting 600,000 here or there, I mean, what's on the application is the number.
And what would be, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
What would be the ongoing expense for these 8 deputies? I mean, year 4, is it 600,000? Is it 450,000?
Well, it's going to be based on where the salary scale is at that point, and the benefits. If the there's wherever the benefits and the salaries lie at that point is where it will be for 8 people. I mean, benefits have gone up. They've shifted to the employee. So, I mean, this is just for the application. There seems to be a misnomer that if you approve this, that it's approved and we're going to get it. This has to come back before the body even if it is approved, there's no guarantee that we will get these deputies.
Thank you, Mr. French.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief French.
That's okay, ask questions.
Commissioner Burkhalter asked specific questions. I'm a firm believer in there's always 2 sides to every story. Not meaning to put you on the spot, but would you care to elaborate on exactly what the basis, the concept is in this request, other than the obvious?
Mr. French.
Well, the obvious is the more people we get on the street, the more we're able to deter crime and detect crime and to keep the community safe. I mean, that's that's the object here. It's not to grow the sheriff's office. It's, you know, it's a community protection thing.
Mr. French, you're recognized, sir. Do you have another question? Ask the question.
Could you please elaborate on I'm hearing numbers thrown at me that I'm not 100% sure about. Can you allude to
And I know that the Drug Task Force is tasked with all virtues of drugs, not just methamphetamine, but could you please share with us what's happened in the last maybe 3-4 weeks in regard to the increase in meth labs? I mean, it's not going away. It seems to me that it's getting more prevalent.
Mr. French, go ahead.
I can't give you the exact number. I think the number off the top of my head is 17 in the last 3 weeks that we've dealt with. I know there were 7 in one day that the Drug Task Force dealt with in just, you know, one 24-hour period. And, you know, there's not just, like you said, there's not just meth. There's a pill problem, there's marijuana, there's other.
That number stuck out. 17 meth labs in Blount County in 3 weeks. I don't have any more questions.
Commissioner Lewis, you're recognized.
Just one question, Jeff. The application deadline was June the 4th. Has that been extended so that we can now apply for that grant?
Mr. French.
The grant was applied for by our grant application, or our grant writer here in the county, which is Doug Hancock. I'm not sure when the actual deadline is on that. If it says June 4th, I don't know if that's when he submitted it or is that's when the actual deadline was for the grant to be submitted to the COPS office.
Okay,
so it could be a moot point if it's if it was June 4th and we haven't approved it. This might be a moot point.
Well, that's the reason I ask. If the deadline is passed and we haven't applied, then it looks like we've missed the window.
Commissioner French, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hearing all the figures coming out from different sources. I wonder, I know we're just voting on the application. And I wonder if it'd be appropriate to ask Mr. French if we are awarded this grant, before we vote on whether to accept it or not, if you could come through with some figures to let us know, you can, you know, look down the line and kind of extrapolate and see what it's going to cost the county in the 4th year and then further. If that would be, if you could bring those figures to us if we do receive the grant.
If the grant is awarded, Mr. French, what we will have to do is bring you the whole grant application showing you the breakdown of the money we're going to receive from the feds and then how much we're going to have to spend on the county side.
Not just for those 3 years.
And
just one person at a time, please.
And then, you know, it would obviously show the 4th year of what the 100% would be.
That's okay. I appreciate it.
And you know, once we get the award, I will bring it straight back to the budget committee and they can vote it yes or no and send it to you. And
Commissioner Lambert, you're recognized.
I don't have a question, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to make a statement. Number one, I am not the sheriff's aunt. Number two, I thank God every day for these law enforcement people. They're the ones that keep our community safe. They keep us secure. They're our first line of defense against anarchy. And to constantly criticize everything, no matter how minute it is, gets very tiring. You should be thanking these people every day instead of criticizing.
Commissioner Folks, you're recognized, sir, for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You get a lot higher than $400,000 when you add benefits Benefits in the sheriff's office run between 45 and 48% of the base salaries. Then you add cars, weapons, uniforms, and all the other overheads. That's how you get a much larger number than what is spelled out in a grant. Training, all those costs are borne by the county. So that's how we get to the different number. And we're not criticizing anybody here, but we are elected to make choices. We have a limited amount of money, and we can't give everybody everything they want. And if we commit to the sheriff's expenditures for this, and down the line the schools come to us and want $600,000 for books, well, that $600,000 is gone. We are elected to make choices. And the ones we've been making, if we listen to the people, haven't been real good. And we got to change. Thank you.
Commissioner Samples, you recognize, sir. Commissioner Wright, you're recognized. I recognized you, Commissioner Samples. I'm sorry. I'll come back to you. Go ahead, Commissioner Wright.
Well, I guess my question would be, Mr. Chairman, in 3 years, there could be some people retire and move to other counties or whatever. And I guess my question is that a possibility? In other words, this says 6 additional employees, but in my way of thinking, we could lose 9. Does this grant tie us and say, hey, you've got to keep the same number of people that you've got on the payroll now? I don't think so. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a possibility here that we could lose 9 employees and gain 6, still be -3. Am I correct, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner French, would you like to respond, sir? Commissioner French, excuse me, I just elevated.
As far as the grant goes, yes, sir, Mr. Wright, you can't, the federal government doesn't allow you, it's called supplanting, to take federal dollars to reduce your local numbers to add to your personnel. Is that what you're talking about? Or these would be an enhancement to the sheriff's office. They would be an additional number of employees, not a subplant. It's not allowed in the grant
I understand,
process.
Mr. French, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman. But there is nothing in the grant, okay, that says you have to maintain. If you've got 100 employees right now, there's nothing in the grant that says you got to maintain 100 employees for the next 3 years. Is that correct? I mean, the grant does not tie your hands to 100 employees. That's what
It's not. It doesn't tie to a specific number of employees, no, sir. But it does. It is an enhancement.
Commissioner Samples, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you. I've heard it said here before tonight, but I want to make sure that everyone understands we are not spending one dime in this vote. We are simply approving the application to file it, and that may, as Commissioner Lewis pointed out, be a moot point. If it's approved, it's got to come back to the Budget Committee, and if we're in the same shape when it comes back, whenever it comes back, I personally don't see it coming out of the Budget Committee. But the bottom line, it does not affect this vote tonight. None of these numbers affect this vote tonight. This vote is simply about the grant application, just like the other 2. That's all I want to say.
Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to approve the application. Vote no not to approve.
We have 18 yeses and 2 nays.
18 yes, 2 no. The grant application is approved. Moving on to item F8, the chair will stand for motion on F8, Resolution 1306-003, setting the property tax rate for the year beginning July 1, 2013 and ending June 30th, 2014. Mr. Samples moves. Mr. French seconds. The motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-003. Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make an amendment to...
State your amendment.
My amendment will be to strike .64 and replace it with .69, to strike 0.99 and replace with 1.03, and to strike the phrase "to fund a school's maintenance of effort" MOE 9 cents.
Is there a second?
Second. I'll accept that.
Is there a second? I heard a second.
Mr. Lael seconds.
Mr. Lael seconds. Well, it's been moved. The pending motion is to amend the resolution, striking .64 and inserting .69, striking .99, insert .03, striking the line starting with 2 and ending with 09. Discussion. Mr. Folks, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I went through Mr. Burkhalter's spreadsheets, and I have a couple of points of information I'd like.
Proceed. You have the floor, sir, for discussion.
Okay, well, I really need answers from Mr. Burkhalter to understand his spreadsheet and what he did here. And specifically, I'm referring to line 1 of, and this is in the package, the $30,700,062, and it says the allocation from the prior year received. So I assume that's what was spent by the schools in FY12. Is that correct?
That's
Mr.
correct.
Burkhalter, go ahead. You're recognized.
This budget does not look at how the schools spend their money. All that we as the commission look at is the revenue that we appropriate to the schools. All that this spreadsheet has done has taken the local revenue line items of the school's budget from 2011-12 to create that number on line 1, and then looked at the 2012-2013 the local revenue only. What the school board has come back, or what the law says, is that, and that's on the 3rd page of the packet, is that we have to fund these schools to the same level that they had in the prior year, except for debt service and if there's a reduction in ADM. And
let me stop you, because I understand all that.
I want to clarify one of the things in my presentation. Is when I submitted this on Friday, I had not been provided as of yet with the ADM numbers. The ADM numbers were provided to me after the packet was already published, and the school's ADM actually went up for the first time in several years. So the second half of my paper that talks about reducing the budget because of a reduction in ADM is not appropriate for this evening, because the school's ADM did not go down. It actually increased. So what's your next question, sir?
Excuse me, Mr. Folks, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand that this is a calculation of what the required maintenance of effort number is, and it resulted in a lower number, a lower amount to be spent on the schools.
That's incorrect. Wait a minute. Just, excuse me. Go ahead, Mr. Folks.
And so I'm trying to understand, and I spent considerable time before the meeting trying to understand how you arrived at these numbers. And one of the key numbers here is that you use the local spending on the schools for the prior year. Okay, and that's $30,700,000 in 12-13, and presumably for the 13-14 budget, we should be using the amount expected to be spent this year.
Is that a question? Is that a question?
Now let me get to the very specific number. And if I look at the third page of your handout, what's expected to be spent this year on the third page, 2012, 2013 is $32,142,000, but the number you've used is $30,544,000. Well, if we use the 32 million number, it would result in a much higher maintenance of effort number. So I'm confused. Thank you.
Wait a minute, Mr. Burkhalter, would you like to?
I would like to respond to the commissioner, please.
You're giving an answer to the question.
Yes,
correct?
I am. You keep using the word spending. We're not looking at spending. We are only looking at what we have collected as revenue. On line 2 and 3, first of all, I'm not decreasing any amount of money that would be going to the schools. The school's revenue line item is a mathematical calculation. What I have done is I have looked at the local option sales tax, trustees' collections for the prior years. If we adjust the proposed budget for 2013-14 back up to what the schools passed last year for the 2012-2013, just those two line items, and we increase those estimates back up to where the school board approved them last year, then that reduces mathematically the amount of money that the penny has to use to shore up the difference in local revenue spending. And that's where the calculation comes from. That's how mathematically, it's a simple algebra equation. A is line 9, B is line 12, C is line 19. If you increase C and you increase B, then to still arrive at the same ending number, you can decrease the other and the penny, and that's what this is doing.
Mr. Filmer, you're recognized.
We do not have line item power to go back and start changing line items progressed to us by the budget committee, puts us completely out of order. We're here to set the appropriated rates. We do not come here on this to start changing line items.
That's obviously true, Mr. Farmer, and I agree with, and I rule in your favor as a point of order, but the discussion is the pending motion.
I just made a point of order when it was brought up line. Prior to that, I didn't say a word. I will address other issues later, but when you start discussing line items, you are violating point of order.
Point taken. The pending motion is to amend Resolution 1306-003, changing the the setting of the tax rate and the distribution thereof by substituting or striking 64 for general county, inserting 69, striking 99, and inserting 1.03, and deleting the next line in its entirety. That's what's on the floor for discussion. Mr. Farmer, I'll recognize you again since you haven't spoken.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sit through the budget committee hearings, sit through everything else. I have a question either to the chairman, to the budget committee, or to Mr. Vineyard. It was progressed to us that it would take 9 cents to meet maintenance of effort. Maintenance of effort is not a suggestion, it's the law. If we are not complying with the law, what we vote on here tonight is irrelevant. It will not be accepted by the state. My question is to Mr. Vineyard. Will 103 meet maintenance of effort, Mr. Vineyard? If so, then why did we go through the budget hearing being told it would take 9 cents?
Mr. Vineyard, you're recognized.
I'm not going to second guess what the budget committee presented to this body.
Thank you,
It is
sir.
what it is.
Thank you, sir. That's all I want to know. That being the case, if 103 does not meet maintenance of effort, this is not a viable thing to put for this body. We're putting something before us that is in direct violation of the law, and I can assure you I'm not going to vote to violate the law.
Ms. Merle, you're recognized. Ms. Merle?
No, I think Gary just answered my question, or asked the question I was going to ask.
Commissioner Farmer answered your question. Thank you. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you. I've spent a lot of time on this spreadsheet, and I agree we're talking about revenues, and I understand all that, and I pulled data down from the county computer. But this spreadsheet, it sure looks like there's an error to me. And in effect, that error takes 5 cents away from the schools. You know, without getting into more details on this spreadsheet, which we probably can't do in this forum, this isn't what we ought to be doing.
Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The meet the maintenance of effort looks at all sources of local revenue, not just property tax. We have sales tax. We have trustees collections. We have charitable donations. We have sale of assets. The state does not look at property tax for meet and maintenance of effort. It looks at local revenue sources. What we are doing is we have an appropriation to readjust the pennies. We, as the commission, set revenue. So it would be up to Mr. Vineyard, I believe, or to the budget committee to go back and to relook at their revenue projections for local revenue to reset those different line items in order to have the mathematical equation for local revenue sources come into play. Not just property tax, but all local revenue sources. That's what maintenance of effort is that your local revenue sources, not just property tax, but all the revenue sources that we have. If there is a decrease, if the sales tax is underestimated, then, and it comes in $700,000 higher, that money stays with the school system. We do not see that on the general county side. That stays with the schools because that's their local option because they get the sales tax. If we give them the pennies as well, and it comes in higher, we don't get those pennies back. We have lost that money to the school system, which to help rebuild up their fund balance. So what we are doing is playing with a mathematical equation. And the law is local revenue sources, not property tax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are the members ready for the question? The pending motion is to amend Resolution 1306003. Is that clear? We're voting on the amendment. Vote yes. Mr. Hasty?
Yes, I got a question. I'm sorry.
Ask the question. I want you to be clear on this.
My question to Mr. Vineyard, if I may.
Sure.
Is what Commissioner Burkhalter said about the extra money that comes in over and above what the sales tax, it does go on to the school system. It doesn't come back.
Mr. Vineyard?
Yes.
And so what he's saying, this is the mathematical equation of what he's trying to do. Will that wording or you know, where we've taken out maintenance of effort, that wording, that 9 cents, will that put us in a violation, or does it matter what you call it, what it is? I mean, whether I'm looking at, with what he said, a reduction, yes, in the school system. But at the same time, we're coming up with the same figure all the way around. And with what he's trying to do, what I'm seeing is it's pinpointing more exactly what we're giving, not a guesswork in the way people spend their money. I'm not asking this right, but will we be in any violation by using this formula? I'll go with that.
Mr. Vineyard?
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question.
Every penny we spend locally goes to maintenance of effort, and the chair is out of order for making that comment. Commissioner Farmer, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was the partially to Mr. Hasty. That was my point on calling point of order a while ago. These line items have been discussed by the Budget Committee repetitively through the process. For us to go back tonight and start second-guessing line items, we're in violation. That's why I call point of order. What has been put forward is the suggestion of the Budget Committee. You don't want to go with that, that's fine. But when Mr. Vineyard sat at that and said it would require 9 cents to meet maintenance of effort, he's the one being paid to do this job. I listened to him. And that's the way I'm going to view it. Now, the rest of you can do what you want to, but I'm going to stay in compliance with the law. And I'm not going to second guess what the Budget Committee did when he said that's what it would take to meet it. And that's the way I feel about it.
Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
Question for Randy, because that becomes pretty critical in the resolution itself, is how we're required to break it out. And so my question, Randy, if this is a question you can't answer, which is kind of 2 parts. One is, does it matter how it's broken out? As Commissioner Burkhalter or had wanted to change, do we have to break out the MOE separately?
I don't know that you have to. There have been previous tax rate resolutions passed by this body and its predecessors, and that was never included.
Which brings me to the second point, which is I think the reason, or one of the reasons to not do it the way that it is would be if sales tax revenues increase next year, then we didn't have to separate out MOE separately, that we end up funding this with the increase. Basically, we're betting on the sales tax revenue to increase. Without having to go to fund balance. So if I understand this right, and this question may be better directed to Commissioner Burkhalter, if you alter what we have here, basically the only way it will work is if sales tax revenues and property tax revenues increase for the coming year. Is that accurate?
Is that a question to the chair, to Commissioner Burkhalter?
Yes.
Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized to answer.
To Commissioner Lewis's question, yes, we know that this past year we had an unexpected dip in sales tax revenue. What if our sales tax comes back to the level that it was forecasted to be at for 2012, 2013, then the local revenue option from the property tax to have met maintenance of effort would have only required 4 pennies. And that's what I am proposing is, if you want to view it as you call it, a betting on the sales tax to improve, if we had not had that one-time hit on sales tax, our numbers would have been much closer to estimated instead of off by over $600,000. The same thing with the property, with the prior collections of the trustee. Somewhere these schools in 2012-13, and I know I'm singling out one specific item, but my interpretation from CTAS is we as the commission have the right to look at revenue, not in line items on appropriations, but at revenue, and this is a revenue line item. I wish CTAS could be here tonight in the room so we could ask CTAS to clarify, because it sounds like each one of us calls CTAS and we get a different answer. I was told we as the commission can look at revenue sources. This is a revenue source. It's the only reason why I brought it up tonight. So to answer to Mr. Lewis's question is, if sales tax improves, then yes, we're betting on that. Sales tax does not come in as estimated. We are in the exact same spot next year as we are now. The mayor has already told us that he doesn't want to do a property tax increase when we asked him about this budget at our work session. He told us he wants to start cutting the budget. We now then have a year to start cutting the budget, starting tonight for next year's budget, where we're not waiting until February, March, April, or May. We can start now. We are betting a little bit on the sales tax to improve. We are betting on our property taxes collections to pick up, which we see all the growth that's coming into the county. We see the growth of our industry. So yes, we're trying to prolong another year. That gets us another year down the road for improvement. That also gives the mayor time to start working with the elected office holders to implement the cuts that he wants to recommend, so that way we're not using as much out of fund balance. What this does is this gives us a year to work towards going down this road together and hoping sales tax improves to where it was forecasted to be this past year. Somewhere we came up with the forecasted numbers from last year. That's all we're doing is going back to last year's forecasted numbers.
Pretty long question,
Sorry.
answer, Commissioner. Commissioner Samples, you recognize, sir.
Just a point of clarification, the line to fund school maintenance of effort, MOE .09, that line was included from the budget committee. It has never been a part of the budget that I can ever recall in 19 years. We did that in the budget committee. Commissioner Lewis, you made the motion to do that. And this is the first time it's ever been delineated as a specific part of the appropriation. Thank you.
Commissioner French, I believe you're next in line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the only question I have is what I'm hearing is the figure is based on if we do reach revenues, the sales tax does go up. What happens if the sales tax doesn't go up or it stays down? What happens then? I mean, we're taking that money away from the schools. I'd rather err on the side of discretion and meet the maintenance of effort that Mr. Farmer alluded to and the budget committee recommended, and err on that side and be safe as to have the state come in, and if we don't meet maintenance of effort, then there are penalties that will come from the state. So I think we need to err on the side of discretion and go with what the budget committee has recommended.
Commissioner Lewis, you recognize.
Question for Randy. The May sales tax figures, we got those incorrect?
Go ahead, Randy.
If you're referring to May's economic activity that we report as June, the answer is yes.
And that figure was, can you talk a little bit about what that showed?
We were up for the month over last June.
By?
12.8%.
So I think that may be in part what Commissioner Burkhalter was talking about. Basically, I think what it does is postpones the use of fund balance for 1 year until we know what those figures are. We can go ahead and use fund balance now, and if the sales tax figures continue on the same pace that they are for May through the rest of the year, then there wouldn't have been a reason to use the fund balance in the beginning. That's all at this time.
Commissioner Hasty, you recognized for the second and last time.
I wrote my question down this time, so maybe.
Okay. State your question, sir.
Maybe I'll have it. So what I'm understanding with what Commissioner Lewis has just said, we're looking at using 4 cents out of our fund balance rainy day fund as opposed to 9 cents as approved in our packet, and we can always come back and fund if we're under, but if it goes over, then that comes to the general county.
Mr. Vineyard.
If sales tax, whatever sales tax is, whether it's up versus the budget or down versus the budget, makes no difference. It goes to school. It goes to education, period. Has nothing to do with how much you budget. Everything that we generate from sales tax for education goes to education, regardless of the amount of money.
Commissioner Folks, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got, if we do this, take 5 cents away from the schools, that in effect takes $1 million away from the schools. So, and we seem to be betting that we've had 1 good month in sales tax. We were told at the Education Committee meeting that I believe every month this year, tax receipts have been down compared to the prior year, if I recall right. And so this would be the first month that we've had tax receipts up. Now, we don't know whether that's a one-shot or whether that's going to continue. And I guess if I were in the schools, I wouldn't want somebody betting on the come on sales tax. You know, we've got to make a much better case that sales tax receipts are going to continue if we're going to do something like this, I think. Thank you.
Mr. Kaler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be honest with you, I'm confused. A simple question to Mr. Vineyard, if you don't care. Thank you. If we pass through 6499 and 09 that we have in our packet.
Excuse me, the motion on the floor is the amendment, sir.
Well, I'm getting there. Or if we decide to amend it to what Commissioner Burkhalter has proposed, do the schools still get the same amount of money at the end of the day? Where it's coming from or how it's getting there is the amount of money that the school system is getting the same.
Mr. Vineyard?
I can answer the proposal that's in the original motion on the tax levy that came from the Budget Committee provides local revenue to fund basically $81 million worth of revenue for the system. If I understand the intent of the amendment would in essence have the same values. If I understand it, it would be different values for certain items in the revenues.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the some from here, some from here, some from here may be different, but at the end of the line, it's the same amount of money. I'm just asking. I don't know.
I said the intent. I've not seen the total revenue number.
Okay, one more question and I'll hush. If this amendment was approved and the money or the numbers do not work out to what the maintenance of effort figure is, then what do we do?
You're in the same position you are in the current year.
Okay. Plain enough, thank you.
Mr. Farmer, Commissioner Farmer, you seek the floor for what purpose, sir?
Two things. If, and we're betting.
No, you've had the floor twice. Would you like?
Call for the question. Vote on the amendment.
Question's been moved. Is there a second? Second. Vote yes to amend resolution 1306003. Pardon me? We're voting on the amendment. We're not voting on the adoption of the resolution. Vote yes to amend resolution 1306003. Vote no not to amend. It's on Commissioner Burkhalter's amendment. Chairs in error. We're voting on a move previous question. Vote yes to end discussion. Vote clear the board, please. Clear the board. Vote yes to end discussion on the amendment.
Objection to ending?
Vote no, not to amend.
Mr. Chairman, there is no objection to ending
Okay.
discussion.
When you move the question, previous question, we have a second. There's no debate. You immediately go to vote to move the question, which ends debate. vote yes to adopt the amendment, vote yes to amend, vote no not to amend. Do I have everyone sufficiently confused? Yes. All right, here we go. We'll state it one more time. We'll put it to the body. Vote yes to amend the resolution. Vote no not to amend the resolution. If you vote yes, you're amending the resolution by inserting 69, striking 99, inserting 103, and deleting to fund school maintenance of effort line. Is that better? Is everyone clear what we're voting on? Vote yes to amend it. Vote no not to amend. Please vote.
You have 8 yeses and 12 noes.
8 yes, 12 noes. The motion to amend fails. The pending motion now becomes to adopt Resolution 1306-003 as published. Floor is open for discussion. Just a moment. Mr. Farmer, you turn your light on.
In line with Mr. Sample's statement, I'm not sure, was there a motion on the floor and a second previously prior to the amendment?
Mr. Samples made the motion for purpose of discussion.
Okay, in line with his statement that it had not been published like that in the past, I agree with him and feel that it should actually show 108 instead of 99 and 09.
Mr. Farmer moves to strike .99 and insert 108. Is that correct?
That's how it has been in the past. It has not
that
been.
your
Yes,
motion?
that is correct, sir.
Is there a second? Mr. French seconds. Discussion on the amendment. Vote yes to amend the resolution by striking 99 and 09 and insert 108. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Vote yes to amend, vote no not to amend. Vote.
14 yeses and 6 noes.
14 yes, 6 noes. The amendment passes. Now pending motion becomes to adopt Resolution 1306-003 as amended. And we're actually back the same lines, except to operate elementary, middle, and high schools will be 108. The next line to fund school maintenance MOE 99 is deleted. Correct, Mr. Farmer? Mr. Laley, sixth floor.
Yes, sir. Section 3 of this resolution needs some adjustment, I believe, if I may.
Are you asking to amend?
I'm asking to amend, and I would need to explain that as...
State your amendment.
Okay. The amendment is to substitute Section 3 as it stands with the following. Be it resolved, there is also imposed on the sale of beer at wholesale a tax equal to $35.60 per barrel of 31 liquid gallons of beer sold as provided by Chapter 189 of the Public Acts of 2013, approved April 23, 2013, effective July 1, 2013. The tax upon barrels containing more or less than 31 gallons shall be taxed at a proportionate rate. This being new legislation from the state that passed in April,
is there a
it
second?
probably should reflect that.
Mr. Farmer seconds. Pending motion is to amend the resolution by striking the original Section 3 and inserting the language that Mr. Lael just read because of change by the General Assembly. Discussion on the amendment. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Yeah, this is a big change at the last minute.
Would you
And-
like to have the General Assembly revisit that?
Well, the General Assembly finished its business a month ago. I would have thought we could have got it right. But let me just ask, does this change the amount of money that the schools are going to get from this? What's the impact of this in terms of?
This is Section 3, it's
Yes.
nothing.
And it generates money for the schools.
Would you like to ask the Finance Director a question?
Yes. What's the impact on the amount of money?
The impact that, if I recall, the legislation was that the General Assembly changed the way that beer was to be taxed. Since there was a number of microbreweries and boutique breweries that were popping up all over the country, and in particular in this state, they felt this was a better way to tax that economic activity rather than the percentage tax on gallons of beer, barrels of beer. We typically, if I've researched my history here, we typically have addressed this matter in the tax rate resolution. That's what this body typically has done. We got notice of this from CTAS literally this week.
Is the amount of money going to go up or down?
I can't answer that. It was expected that it would hopefully go up because that's why the General Assembly changed it. Beer consumption has been going down from the traditional brewing that has been done in the country on the former way it was taxed. By changing the tax structure to the more boutique types of breweries, this is a way that they thought that we keep beer revenue coming in at an equal or greater amount.
Point of order. Commissioner, this is a law enacted by the state of Tennessee. This body does not have the authority to impose a tax different or separate from what the General Assembly and the governor of the state of Tennessee has passed.
Well, I understand that, but it generates revenue for the county, and I'm trying to figure out what the impact on the revenue is.
That's moot. It's going to be what the law is, and that's my ruling. Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
State your question.
Where do we ever vote on the revenues?
Pardon me?
We vote on the appropriations, but when do we ever vote on approval of the revenues as estimated? I mean, we're here, we are appropriating money, we're voting how to spend the money, but with the budget, you gotta approve, we need to approve the revenue as well. When do we vote on the revenues? I think that answered Mr. Fultz's question.
With respect, Commissioner Burkhalter, that's not part of the discussion of the pending motion of the amendment that's before us. Commissioner Farmer, would you seek the floor? Commissioner French, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you repeat that amendment? I'm just kind of, I missed, I don't even.
The pending motion is to strike Section 3.
Right.
And insert, be it resolved, there is also imposed on the sale of beer at the wholesale a tax equal to $35.60 per barrel of 31 liquid gallons of beer sold as provided by Chapter 189 of Public Acts of 2013, approved April 23rd, 2013, effective July 1, 2013. The tax upon barrels containing more or less than 31 gallons shall be taxed at proportionate rate. Commissioner Merrill?
Well, I see what Mr. Fultz is saying. What is the dollar amount that we generate from beer tax now versus what we're going to get, and how does that affect our budget? I mean, we don't have a choice. We have to put it in. That's not the subject.
It's the law.
Right. But it does affect our budget. So do we need to relook at our budget? Is it that large of amount that it's going to make a difference? Okay.
Go ahead and answer again so that it can be picked up on the video.
No.
Thank you, sir. Pending motion is to adopt the resolution by striking Section 3 and inserting the language we just had. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to amend the resolution. Vote no not to amend. Mr. Lewis, you're recognized.
At what point do we, and this may be it, that we talk about the impact of the 215 and the current proposal? Is this an appropriate time to talk about that? If so, I need to address.
No, we have a motion on the floor to amend the resolution.
It's only on the amendment?
I'll yield the floor after we deal with the resolution.
Yeah, if we're
Pending motion is to adopt a resolution by striking Section 3, removing the old beer tax at 17% and inserting the law that was passed by the General Assembly in the 108th General Assembly and signed by the Governor on April 23rd. Vote yes to amend, vote no not to amend.
Yes.
20 yes, 0 no. The resolution's amended. The pending motion before the Commission is to adopt Resolution 1306-003 as amended, and the only amendment has been Section 3. Discussion. Commissioner Lewis, you're recognized.
question for Mr. Vineyard. If this resolution passes as is, at a 215 rate with those appropriations that we've made, approximately how much money is it going to require that comes out of fund balance to make up the deficit?
Mr. Vineyard?
Approximately 3.3 million.
And we have how much money in fund balance at this time?
At the end of last fiscal year, the audited number was approximately $8.5 million.
So if we take 3.5 million, 3.3, 3.2 to balance this budget, what is the risk of the county losing its bond rating or having it dropped?
I don't know what, it would not be viewed as a positive by the rating agencies. I can't put an assessment on it, but there is nothing positive about it.
But mainly because we're taking money out of fund balance to pay recurring expenses. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's exactly the kind of activity that we have said that the school board has done over the past 2 to 3 years, and why the schools are in the position that they are today. And this is going down that same road for the county. Would that be accurate?
It would be very similar.
Well, then I suggest we as a commission look at a more fiscally responsible way to not spend ourselves out of money with no solution in sight. Thank you.
Commissioner Carver, you're recognized.
It was reported in the news, or Ben Bernanke with the Federal Reserve has stated it was going to reduce the economic stimulus program. I'd like to ask Mr. Vineyard, do you think that will affect us if we pull from our fund balance?
If The Fed chairman has, whether it was intentional or not, obviously created a great deal of upheaval in all the markets yesterday and today. The way that would impact Blount County is if Blount County were to be considering refinancing or restructuring any of its debt, and we had reason to go to the market to do that, we should expect to pay higher interest rates. As an indication, today, at the close of business in the bond market this afternoon, interest rates for municipal tax-exempt bonds had gone up 20 basis points. A typical move in that interest rate environment would be 1 to 5 basis points.
That's fine. Thank you.
Commissioner Farmer, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to get some clarification, I guess, off of what Mr. Lewis just asked. And hopefully, Mr. Vineyard, did I understand that it's going to require $3.3 million in general county out of fund balance?
Yes, sir.
And then we'll be using approximately 1.4 out of fund balance for debt service?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Folks, you recognize.
Yeah, let me clarify the answer to that question. Are we taking 1.4 plus 3 point, what was it, 3.3?
Yes.
Whoa. Okay, so we're at 4.7, is that correct?
No. The question, as I understood it, was, are we spending an additional 1.4 million out of the debt service fund balance? That's what I responded yes to.
But how much are we taking with this budget before us? How much is coming out of the rainy day funds? Let's put it that way. How much out of the debt service fund and how much out of the fund balance, general fund balance?
Add those two together and it's 4.7.
It's 4.7. Oh. 4.7, so that's 16 cents worth at a tax rate, if I've done the math right. Right? 300,000. So we're overspending to the tune of 16 cents on the tax rate.
Commissioner Samples, you're recognized.
I'd like to ask Mr. Vineyard a question.
State your question.
Mr. Vineyard, would you give us the total of the general county fund balance and the total of the debt service fund balance? What's the total of those two?
You're at, as I stated earlier, 8.5 when we began this fiscal year in the general county, and I think we were right at 11 million, I think.
So the total
on the debt
is
service fund.
$19.5 million of fund balance in general county and debt service.
That sounds correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Pending motion is to adopt Resolution 1306-003 as amended. And the only amendment is that's right, excuse me. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt the resolution. Vote no not to adopt. Mr. Hasty? On the appropriations, usually. Conflict of interest? You're recognized, Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because I am an employee of Blount County Schools, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument, my vote, answer only to my conscience, to my obligation to my constituents and citizens this body represents.
Mr. Hasty, you're recognized.
Because my wife is a employee of Blount County Property Assessor's Office, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
Because I'm an employee of Circuit Court Clerk, have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience, to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
Commissioner Lael?
Because my wife is an employee of Blount County Schools and I'm a retired employee of Blount County, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and my obligation to my constituents and the citizen this body represents.
Commissioner Carver?
Because I'm an employee of Blount Memorial Hospital, I have a conflict of interest in this proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and to the citizens of this body represents.
Anyone else? Announce the vote.
14 yes, 5 noes, 1 abstain.
14 yes, 5 no, 1 abstain. The resolution is adopted as amended. Next item of business is F9. The chair will stand for motion on F9, Resolution 130604, resolution make appropriation for the various funds, department, institution, offices, and agencies of Blount County, Tennessee for the year beginning July 1, 2013 and ending June 30th, 2014. Is there a motion? Mr. Samples moves. Ms. Lambert seconds. The motion is to adopt Resolution 130604. Are the members ready for the question? Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very concerned that this budget, and I sense that others are very concerned that this proposed budget will cut very deeply into our rainy day fund and endanger the county's credit rating. These are tough times. Most of our citizens are having to carefully manage their expenses to fit within their incomes. We should do the same. And we can do the same. Let me explain. Our citizens, if they're lucky, have incomes that are tracking inflation. Over the last 2 years, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, inflation...
Folks, would you like to ask permission to read, sir?
What's that?
Would you like permission to read from the body? You're reading a document. Would you like request permission? Commissioner Folks request unanimous consent to read. Is there objection? Hearing no objections, please continue.
Wasn't aware I needed permission if I did some homework and prepared my remarks. Most of our citizens have had to limit increases in their expenses to that 3.4% inflation amount. If we did the same thing with the county general fund budget, we could avoid dipping into our rainy day fund, do you know? For the convenience of my fellow commissioners, I've prepared a document which shows what our appropriation resolution would look like if we took this approach. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I would like to pass copies of that around to the members.
Commissioner Folks, ask unanimous consent to pass out a document to the body. Is there objection? I hear an objection. Continue, Mr. Folks.
Does the body not want to see any ideas on how we might?
You asked for unanimous consent. There was an objection. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Make a motion.
All right. I make a motion that we at least look at an alternative on the budget.
There's a motion. Mr. Folks, present document. There's a second by Commissioner Merle. Discussion. Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
I have a question. Mr. Fultz, when did you prepare this document? Because we as a commission need time to look at anything. I try to have mine in before the 5 days. Is there any extraordinary reason why you couldn't have put it into the packet last week?
Commissioner Folks, you're recognized for an answer, sir.
Yes. It took a great deal of thought to put together. And I didn't, I don't think that simply passing out something for people to look at, it'll be pretty obvious when you see it because it's in the same format as the appropriation resolution.
Excuse me. Come to order, sir. The pending motion is to allow Commissioner Folks to distribute a document. It's been second. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to allow Mr. Folks to distribute a document. Vote no, not to allow. Please vote.
Seven yeses.
7 yes, 12 no, 1 abstain. Motion fails. The pending motion is to adopt Resolution 130604. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'll continue my remarks. I guess it's, if you don't want to see any data or any alternate ideas, I guess that speaks for itself. There were 2 columns in this document. One was the current appropriations resolution, and the second column simply took the actual fiscal year 12 spending and increased it by the rate of inflation, 3.4%. And if you went to the end of the document, what you would see is that the total general fund appropriation would have been reduced by $2.9 million. That would have substantially reduced the amount that we're taking out of the rainy day fund. In fact, for 22 of the 52 departments listed, the 3.2% guideline would not have changed their budget at all. 22 of 52 are living like our citizens, within their means, staying within inflation. Let me emphasize that the revised appropriations based on a 3.2% increase in spending were all increases over last year's spending. Nobody was cut. We increased every one. And yet, we were able to come up with a general fund budget that saved $2.9 million on that basis. If we just operated the county the way all our citizens have to operate their households, this is not a big deal. It could be done, and we wouldn't be risking our credit rating to do it. But I guess if we don't want to talk about that, there we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
I've got a question to ask. We are talking about F9, correct?
We are speaking.
Speaking of F9.
The pending motion is to adopt Resolution 130604, which is item F9 on tonight's agenda.
My one comment, I've got a question, and since I don't want anybody to put words in my mouth for me, except for myself, Mr. Fultz has wanted us to have a conversation about his budget. We had a work session and agenda session. There were plenty of ample times for him brought that forward instead of grandstanding and bringing it up tonight. Now, I understand I'm out of order, Mr. Chairman. I apologize.
Point of order, personal attack. It's against
I've already called him to order, sir. You're out of order. Continue.
Mr. Vineyard, in the appropriation request, Section 7, are the dates in that correct? It says, be it further resolved that the county mayor and county clerk are hereby authorized to borrow money, blah, blah, and until the taxes and other revenue for the year 2012, 13 have been collected. Should that be 13, 14?
Are you in the second paragraph? I finally found Section 7 here online.
Section 7, first paragraph and second paragraph, I believe there's two mistakes in there. You have the 2012-13 have been collected. It's in the middle of the first paragraph of Section 7. Should that be 2013, 2014?
Yes, it should be.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, if I can do a follow-up?
Yes, go
In
continue.
bottom of paragraph 2 of section 7, should that be changed to June 30th of 2014?
Yes.
Mr. Vineyard, since we have two mistakes that we need to correct right now on this appropriations budget, could you please briefly review through sections 6 and further down to make sure we can do one amendment to correct all these dates at one time, real fast?
Any reference to June 30, 2013 should be June 30, 2014. And I apologize for that. That was not like that in an earlier version. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification, or just a question for the chair. How do you want me to amend this resolution to correct those dates?
Let's give Mr. Vineyard one moment to scan and see which sections this will impact.
Those two sections in Section 9, Section 8 appears to be correct because it refers to tax years, which would address our delinquent taxes and our current year taxes.
So understand 6, 7, and 9.
That's correct.
Mr. Burkhalter, will you make the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully move that we amend.
Come to order, please. Mr. Burkhalter speaking, please.
That we amend the resolution in front of us. In section 6, strike the date 2013 and replace with 2014. In section 7, strike the words 2012-13 and replace with 2013-14. In section 7, paragraph 2, replace 2013 with 2014. And in section 9, replace 2013 with 2014.
Is there a second? Mr. Farmer seconds. Further discussion on the amendment? Mr. French? Mr. Burkhalter, you're recognized. Turn you back on.
Right now, I have other questions, Mr. Chairman, but right now we need to vote on the amendment. I have no discussion on the amendment as stated.
Members ready for the question? Pending motion is to adopt resolution 130604 to amend section 6, 7, and 9. Vote yes to amend. Vote no not to amend.
Twenty yeses.
20 yes, 0 no. Now, the pending motion now is to adopt the resolution 130604 as amended by our previous vote. You're recognized, Mr. Burkhalter.
Mr. Vineyard, in section 19 of the resolution, it says that excess amounts over and above those originally adopted as estimated cable franchise fee revenues for the Highway Department will be recorded in the general fund. How much have we approved as this commission for the for cable franchise fee revenues?
$64,000 in this budget proposal.
Where is that in our packet? Mr. Chairman, when have we voted on the revenue line items?
Pardon me?
When have we voted on the revenue line items of the budget?
We have not.
I believe we have an incorrect budget tonight because there's no revenue for us to vote on. We have section 19 that says we're going to get money back, but we never vote to approve what that revenue line item is. I believe we can't vote on the budget tonight, Mr. Chairman.
The pending motion is to adopt resolution 130604 as amended to the last vote.
Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion made by Mr. Burkhalter to lay the item on the table. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Mr. Folks seconds. There's no discussion on motion to table. Vote yes to table. Vote no not to lay on the table.
If 7 yeses and 12 noes.
7 yes, 12 no. The motion to table fails. The pending motion is to adopt resolution 130604 as amended. Commissioner Folks, you're recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to raise a point of order here.
State your point of order.
The proposed budget and resolution may be illegal. TCA 512-108 B and C requires that a proposed budget contain certain comparisons with the current and prior year. Specifically, it says, and I quote, The comparison shall present beginning and ending fund balances and the number of employee positions. The proposed budget does not contain the required information on employee positions. Therefore, we would seem to be in violation of state law that I cited, as well as Commission Rule 17.
Mr. Vineyard, the legal notice published in the newspaper of general circulation, can you explain what we ran in?
The points that have been raised were all addressed in the legal requirement to publish the budget as is required by state law. Those matters were presented in that format to the Budget Committee and were published on our website.
Point of order decided in favor. The point of order is not upheld. Commissioner Burkhalter, you're recognized.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. Obviously, through my actions.
Please address the chair.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I have a question for the mayor as chairman of the Budget Committee. And I'm going to say a brief comment. This will be the last thing I say tonight. Obviously, I'm not happy with this budget, and I apologize to Mr. Foltz for my earlier comment. Mr. Mayor, when we had our budget workshop, you stated that you were opposed to any type of a tax increase and that you were going to work on cutting the budget so we don't find ourselves in the same position next year in 12 months from now. When will you start working with the other department heads to cut the budget? That's my question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor, you're recognized.
I think that has to start as soon as you all pass this budget. We have to start on next year.
Commissioner Farmer, you're recognized.
I guess just a short statement. 2 years ago, we felt the necessity to pass a tax increase. It was passed.
Can't speak.
We were blistered. 2 years ago, a tax increase was passed. We were blistered pretty hard over it. I guess in another commissioner's words, I'm confused. How did we end up at this point with an 11-cent tax increase passed 2 years ago? Now call for the question. Let's vote on it.
Previous question's been called. Is there a second? Mr. Lambert seconds. Yes. Vote yes to end discussion and call for the question.
Have 17 yes.
17 yes, 3 no, 1 abstained. We will now vote on adopting the resolution 130604 as amended. Commissioner Farmer, you are recognized.
Thank you. Because I am an employee of Blount County Schools, I have a conflict of interest in a proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument, my vote answer only to my conscience, to my obligation, to my constituents and citizens this body represents.
Commissioner Lael, you recognized.
Thank you. Because my wife is an employee of Blount County and I am a retired Blount County employee, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
Commissioner Helton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because I am an employee circuit court clerk, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
Commissioner Carver, you're recognized.
Because I'm an employee of Blount Memorial Hospital, I have a conflict of interest in this proposal about to be voted. However, I declare my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens of this body represents.
Commissioner Hasty, you recognized.
Because my wife is an employee of Blount County Property Assessor, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
The motion is to adopt Resolution 130604 as amended. Vote yes to adopt. Vote no not to adopt.
If 16 yeses and 4 nays.
16 yes, 4 noes, 1 abstain. The resolution is adopted. The next item of business is F10. The chair will stand for motion on F10. Resolution 130612, resolution authorizing the appropriation of victim assistant assessment fees. Mr. Kaler and Mr. Burkhalter. The motion is to adopt Resolution 130612. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to adopt, vote no not to adopt. I'm sorry. Mr. Folks.
With 19 yeses and 1 no.
19 yes, 1 no. Resolution's adopted. Next item of business is item F11, the consent calendar. Approval of the minutes of the May 16, 2013 meeting. Chair, Mr. Burkhalter moves. Ms. Lambert seconds. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the May Commission meeting, a letter was read into the record that contained a number of factual errors, false accusations, and false statements about me. In addition, this letter violated Commission Rule 4C against personal attacks. I clearly showed the statements in Craig Garrett's letter, the mayor's lawyer, of May 15th were false in a letter that dated May 29th. That was emailed to all of you. Therefore, I request that the Garrett letter containing the false information be removed from the minutes in its entirety.
Making a motion to amend the minutes of the May 16 meeting.
Well, I'm making a request out of common decency. How's that?
Is there a second to a motion to amend? Hearing no second, the motion to amend fails. Please be recognized before you call for the question. Pending motion is to approve the minutes of the May 16 meeting. Are the members ready for the question? Vote yes to approve the minutes. Vote no not to approve.
Yes.
17 yes, 3 noes, 1 absent. Minutes are approved. Moving to item G, announcements and statements. Mr. Folks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. we can make this easy. I request that my reply to Craig Garrett's letter, the mayor's attorney, be inserted in the minutes of this meeting. Either that or I'll read it into the record.
Point of order, this is for items not on the agenda, that was in the agenda that should have come up during this.
A point of order, I rule against it, but no one reads without permission of the body.
In the past, I've never seen a commissioner turn down on an announcement or a reading.
I beg your pardon. It has been done.
I beg your pardon, sir. That is just not so. I've been coming to these meetings about 8 years, longer than you've been here. Now, out of common decency, are we going to include my letter in response in the minutes of this meeting? That's the question.
This is
I'll make the motion.
This is a time for announcements and statements. New business has been concluded.
You destroyed you made an attempt to destroy my reputation in the May meeting. And you helped, Mr. Chairman, you helped.
Mr. Chairman, make motion this meeting be adjourned.
Motion to adjourn, and second. Vote yes to adjourn, vote no not to adjourn. Please vote. We don't have to have that. There's been a motion duly made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Please vote. Seven yes, 13 no's. We're in session. Mr. Melton, do you seek the floor? Excuse me, we're not to that part of the agenda. Mr. Melton, you're recognized. Ms. Birchfield, you're recognized. Excuse me.
And I've got a question. What do we have to do to get Commissioner Fultz's letter on the record? What do we have to do to make that happen? Is there anything we can do tonight, or do we put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
I would recommend putting it on the agenda of the July meeting.
We seem to make up the rules as we go along, and I'm getting a little tired of it.
You're out of order, sir.
I may be out of order, but that's the fact.
Shame on you.
Item H, public input on items not on the agenda. Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Clark. I'm from the 4th District, and I believe this was hit on a little bit last week to be put on the agenda. This was my water source, coming from a landlord who did not disclose anything, did not... Yeah. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Like I said, I believe this was hit on a little bit last week to be put on the agenda for this week. This was my water source because from my understanding of the health department, Blount County has not adapted the Tennessee Community's international property maintenance. So the landlord did not have to tell me what my family and I were having to drink from. I feel that I'm representing hopefully other people here in the community, that we could come together and try to get this changed. basically so no one else has to go through what I have went through. I don't feel that it's right. I don't feel that Blount County is one of the only ones that has not accepted it yet. I would like to see something be put in front of everybody to go ahead and get this changed. Because like I said, it's not right that anyone else should have to go through what myself and my family has went through. So, and that's it.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Come, Ms. King, I'll recognize Ms. King, and then I'll come back to you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Linda King. Two things. First, you didn't need to take $3.3 million from the rainy day fund. $2.7 million, I believe, covers the school's maintenance of effort. It's sad to think that you won't even consider instructing the sheriff's department to purchase his cars from drug fund money instead of rainy day monies. $690,000 for vehicles. That's absolutely obscene. Next, and even more important, I feel like I'm sitting in kindergarten instead of a commission meeting. Were you never taught to respect your peers? You may not agree with a particular commissioner, but as elected officials, I would expect you to act like adults. You should be ashamed, from the commission chairman on down.
My name's Barney Lowe, and I really am ashamed of all of you, except for one guy. I won't call his name, and you know who it is. You all have had a vendetta against him ever since he stepped up there. You know the reason why? He studies. He knows what's going on right here, and he knows what the citizens want. That's all he's asking. You all don't listen to us no more. There's no reason for us to even get up here and talk. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. There's a couple up there that need to be taken out of there and let them pick a commission. The rest of you are doing what you are told to do. Thank you.
Rosalind Lyons, District 4. These are the babies that were drinking that water. They're beautiful children. And if this was just in the house next door to me that was rented out to Stephanie Clark, it would be different. But this is going on all over our community. And they turn into drug houses. They depreciate our land value when you get one of these slumlords next to you. And all we have to do is, I had a lot of wonderful commissioners come to me after the meeting, and they said, do this, do that, or look for this. And I did just exactly what you said. And we have something in the state level called the Tennessee Housing Code's Healthy Home Provisions. Tennessee Department of Health Regulations, rented premises unfit for habitation. It's right here. It's in the state already. All we have to do is adopt this for Blount County and get us a health code officer to start going in here and cleaning up the county slums, because we have so much to work on in this county. Sheriff, you have an amazing job that you have to do. I deal with it every day. I have meth labs right up the road from me. I have a drug syndicate running up and down the road in front of me. And you all are doing your job, and I'm asking you to recognize us. We're the 1800 block of Hughes Loop. We are a community watch. We are doing everything that we can, and we're asking you, please help us. Please help us. Thank you. I appreciate all of you.
can go home. And my name is Douglas Benton, and listening to this, man, I'm still angry, and I'm getting angrier. But the taxpayers have spoken about the wheel tax. Hey, give yourselves a hand. Yeah. Yeah. For Mr. Lael, Mr. Helton, Green, Gamble, Kirby, Burkhalter, Lewis, Samples, Kaler, Farmer Moon, and Carver, and Mrs. Merle. What do you think about the voters shooting down the wheel tax for the second time? Yeah. I hope the commissioners that voted for the additional pathetic tax and lied to us saying the money is going to the kids, get your head out of the sky and listen to the citizens. We are taking back our government. Trust, what a concept. Let me enlighten the citizens about something that I believe the commission is hiding from us. How many of you got a fixed rate loan for your house, not an adjustable rate loan? We did this because we wanted to know how much we're going to be paying in the future. Have you heard of kicking the can down the road? Well, here we go. This came out of the audit from the state of Tennessee. This is our bond payments for each year coming up. 2013, it's about 13.2. 2014, it goes up 1.6 million to 14.8. 2015 goes up 200,000 to 15.0. 2016 goes up another 200,000 to 15.2. And 2017, it goes down a little bit, about 800,000 to 14.4. And in 2018 through 2022, 5 years in a row, it goes down a little bit more to 13.8. But if you're living here in 2023, which is 10 years from now, you're going to be paying a whopping $21 million per year. That's $7.2 million increase from the year before. So I hope that, I mean, y'all are probably going to be gone, most of you. So that's what I call kicking the can down the road. The taxpayers have spoken, and by the way, thank you for that $80,000 hit for the election, and this is a circus.
Thank you, gentlemen, for letting me speak again. Samuel Duck, District 3. I was just taking some notes while I was watching the meeting tonight. Some of this has been brought up in the past. For example, we had over 1,500 school employees, which comes out to 1 employee for every 7 students. And every time we start talking about, well, there's 6 assistant principals at a high school, or we've got 2 departments, which I brought to you doing what City of Maryville was doing with 1 part-time position. I don't know all of the positions in the county, but I've looked at the city. We got almost a dozen guidance counselors. I'm sure the county looks similar to that. We had psychologists on staff, things of that nature. When you start bringing up specific positions that probably need to be eliminated, should be cut, I often get this feedback, particularly from some of the union employees, well, that's illegal. So I finally decided to, at one point, pull up Tennessee Code Annotated 49-3-3. That part of Tennessee Code is the state's BEP formula. Now, I'm going to confess, my eyes crossed when I was trying to read that code. I'm a software developer by trade, and if I wrote code that was spaghetti like this section of Tennessee Code, I would be fired on the spot. But there was, like, for example, 353, Section 353 of that, I believe, was the one, and I pulled this off the top of my head, that said that the commissioner may withhold all or any of your funds for violations of their code. That's a pretty scary thing to read from sitting in your position. But I went down and I found in 354 that the funding shall not be reduced. But what is it? He may withhold all of it, but he shall not reduce the funds? You know, shall's a little bit stronger word. And I think that what the impression I got when I was reading this code is people can just kind of cherry pick what they want out of it and claim that anything that you try to do is illegal. And so I'm encouraging you, one, to start trying to familiarize yourself with the state BEP formula, and then also study some of the history on cutting. I mean, y'all cut the budget a few years ago, and last I checked, the sky didn't fall. The largest penalty I know of, and I could be wrong here, I'm not an expert in this, but I think Davidson County got dinged $3 million. Davidson County is a pretty dadgum big county. So, I mean, if y'all want to get serious about trying to cut some of this waste and not have 6 assistant principals at a high school, I say bull up. I mean, this has got to stop somewhere. And I don't mean to pick on the schools. I think this ought to happen all across the county, but I just hear the most of that's illegal from the school side. Y'all have a good one.
I'd like to begin by, Karen Miller, District 4. I'd like to begin by saying that I appreciate the County Commission this evening opening their meeting with prayer in Jesus' name, and I want to thank you for that. On the other hand, I'd like to say that I'm very mad and angry about the wasting of $81,000 of our taxpayers' money for this wheel tax vote, which wasn't needed. If you all had done your job and listened to the people, we the people have spoken over and over again, we do not want this tax. But no, you put it and wasted $81,000. And I think the 13 commissioners that made this vote possible to take place should forfeit their monthly salaries, commission salaries, and pay this debt. And I also think it was very shameful this evening on how one of our commissioners was treated. He represents the taxpayers, and it's very clear you do not care about cutting. All you want to do is increase your spendings, and it's shameful. And as one of my friends and has spoken here before, all I can say is shame, shame, shame on you.
Larry Shore from Calderwood Highway. I would like to ask the commission to look into this situation of federal prisoners in our jail. We talk about our jail being crowded and all that, and yet we have abundance of federal prisoners in it. What we need to know, I know we get paid to have them in there, but they also cost us money. I would like to see whether whether they're making us a profit or whether they're costing us money. And if they're costing us money, I think we need to get them out of here. I don't think anybody feels good about having federal prisoners right here downtown Marable. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 19 years of attending these occasions, I have heard and seen many federal grants applied for and never heard of one turned down. So therefore, you know, it's an educational experience to hopefully leave you with a few thoughts that you might remember the next time you get a chance to indebt your grandchildren and consider investing in deputies instead of teachers. You know, there's some of us who believe that education prevents crime, and we need to be investing in teachers, not deputies, especially when the deputies are investing in the Chinese ability to steal our property or buy it out from underneath us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Seeing no hands, Chair will stand for a motion to adjourn. Second.